King Charles has now begun the formal process to remove the titles and honours of his brother Andrew. Was Prince Andrew. Now he's just going to be known as Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. And action is also being taken to force him to surrender his lease at the Royal Lodge, the vast mansion that he lives in Windsor Park that he hasn't paid any rent on, or at least not directly. It comes as Andrew faces controversy. You're well aware of the reasons. It's all about Jeffrey Epstein. Max Foster is with me. The big difference here, Max, until now it's always been Andrew voluntary this, Andrew doing that, Andrew agreeing that, but this is different.
It's come from the king. He didn't object. I mean, read into that language, from the palace. He's basically been forced to not only stop using his titles, but he's going to be stripped of them. So they're saying you can't have them anymore. And we've talked before about how many of these titles were earned. So the Duke, his other Scottish titles as well. But the Prince title is something he was born with, and they're arguing that he should be able to keep that. Actually, that's been taken away as well. So he's only Andrew now, which is extraordinary. But the other part of it is this issue that a lot of the British public have. And actually, there's been a lot of commentary in the UK how the media's behind on this. The public want him out of that house. And he's been evicted, effectively. I mean, whatever wording you want to put on it, he's been thrown out of that house. But he is being given another one, a smaller one, on the Sandringham estate, which is the king's private estate. So there's no public money involved there anymore.
But the fascinating part is that the king is doing this. It's formal. It's going to require various legal documents. And
yes.
That's different to what we'd seen before. And in sending Andrew to Sandringham, essentially they are putting him into domestic exile. He's going off, no titles, we don't want to see you again.
They could have given him nothing at all. They've given him a house. I think, actually, it's not going to be as clean as everyone thinks, because the king's still going to be accused of being part of the cover-up, because he's being protected by giving him a house. A lot of the public want him completely out of the picture altogether, but it's probably the best compromise they can have. It's on a private estate, it's not a public estate, there's no public money involved.
Right, but what about the Sarah Ferguson, the former Duchess of York? Fergie, we believe, she's going to move in with him? She's already living with him in Royal Lodge.
Yeah, so it's what royal sources can be like. So when I was asking about Sarah Ferguson, where will she live? Sarah Ferguson will make her own arrangements.
Yeah, that's the equivalent of the old Diana. She's no longer in HRH. Yes. She'll get on with it.
But you're right, she'll be able to live with Andrew, probably. They're very protected.
The daughters, then?
Yes, that's interesting, because they're very...
Have they said...
It's one of the first things they talked about, that as the daughters of the son of a sovereign.
Yeah. Yes.
But they're not a son. Oh, yes.
Yes. The Queen, the late Queen.
Beatrice and Eugenie will retain their titles in line with King George V's Letton's patent, 1917. So, as you know, they're very popular in the family. Their parents are less popular. I think, there has been some reporting and some commentary, which hasn't been denied, that William has gone to them, and they've been very much part of the negotiation. And everyone wants to protect them. And that's the one part of this that everyone's agreed, from the King to William to Andrew to Fergie. They want to make sure the girls are okay, and they're going to be, and they've got apartments at Royal
Kensington Palace.
One at St James's.
Yes, St James's. But the other thing that's fascinating is we're going to see this at Christmas, because the royal family go to Sandringham at Christmas, by which time Andrew and Fergie could be living at Wood Farm or whatever they put them there. They won't be invited to the house for Christmas.
And we've been told that they're not invited to Christmas, but as you say, they're at the house.
They're just down the road.
We shouldn't laugh. I mean, this is so... It's kind of ridiculous on one level, because this is a lot of minutiae that people don't really care about. It's a massive thing, obviously, for the royal family. But, I have to... this is the thing that we should talk about, is that for the first time in a formal Buckingham Palace statement, they're saying our thoughts and utmost sympathies have been and will remain with the victims and survivors of any forms of abuse. And this has been the constant failure, certainly for Andrew. In the BBC interview, he didn't talk about the victims and survivors. Yeah. Actually, the royal family haven't talked enough about them either. And definitely behind the scenes, they've been completely aware of it. And I know that they have been very, the victims and survivors have been at the forefront of their minds, but it hasn't been made clear to the public.
No, it has. Thank you, Max. I'm grateful to you. Thank you. You've got a lot of work to do. Don't plan to getting in bed anytime soon. Thank you. CNN's royal commentator Sally Bedell-Smith is on the line now. Sally, there's a strong argument that says this should have been dealt with by the late Queen all those years ago when she first stripped Andrew of his titles. And she was too soft then. Do you buy that?
Not entirely. I think she was trying to keep the ship sailing, and there's so much more that we have learned. I think probably she was taking Andrew at his word when he said, for example, that he got everything off with Jeffrey Epstein in December 2010, and we now know through that leaked email or revealed email from 2 months later that he was writing a very cozy email to Jeffrey Epstein. So, I think there have been many more things that have sort of tumbled out in recent months. And I think it's easy to pass it off to the Queen, but I think they have, they really probably should have done something within the last year. But everything kind of converged this month.
Right. So what is it, do you think, that finally drew and pushed the king to do this? I mean, for instance, we saw the picture of at one of the girls' birthday parties of Epstein, Weinstein and Maxwell, all sort of at a fancy dress. We've seen questions today about the Duke of Edinburgh, Prince Edward's arrangements on his lease at Bagshot House. Do you think the king is really concerned that the waters are lapping too close to home?
Well, I do think so, because there have been a number of pieces over the last year that have raised questions about the financing of the royal family. And I think, they need to stanch the wound right now. Right. And I mean, just yesterday, the New Statesman magazine had a pretty rough cover story about calling for the abolition of the monarchy. Right. It's a very tough piece, and I think, I don't think things like that can be ignored. I mean, we have seen since Prince Charles became king, we've seen more Republicans out on the streets holding up banners saying, "You're not my, no more kings. You're not my king." And so I think they fear that this, if it were to continue, it would keep damaging the royal family and the monarchy.
Can I finally ask you, from my reading of this is because he's being sent to Sandringham, the private estate, got a house there, losing all. This is the closest one might define to sending him into domestic exile. In other words, in the old days, I like the abdicated king. He went to Paris. The last thing they want is Andrew overseas in Dubai, paparazzi galore. Send him into domestic exile, Sandringham estate, go away and disappear.
I think that's a very good analysis, Richard. I think, excuse me, I think that he will be contained. There is security around, if he were, for example, to go to Wood Farm, where the Duke of Edinburgh, Prince Philip, lived in his last years. I think that would be a safe place. It's a place where Fergie had stayed, actually, when they had Christmas at Sandringham, and she stayed there because the Queen sort of felt sorry for her. And so it's a place where people have been allowed to kind of take refuge. Right. And I wouldn't say that necessarily for him, but it is. I've seen it. I've been there. It's a very secluded place, and it has a lot of security, which is important, and it's not something that he will have to pay for.
The King has said he was going to be paying for that. Thank you, Sally. Always good to have excellent insight from yourself. You not only know the story, you know the participants, you know the background. You're exactly the person we needed to talk to tonight. Thank you, ma'am, for joining us.